Oh, good morning, everyone. I don't know how many Trekkies we have among us, but if Tom Feeney is like Captain Kirk, I am more like his pointy-eared sidekick, Spock. Nevertheless, I am really very honored and excited to be here to discuss leadership with you. It's something that we take very seriously. We are very passionate about it at Safelite, and I'll explain why. And I'll share the lessons we've learned along the way and the beliefs we have. But first, just a gut check. How many of you have heard of Safelite Auto Glass? Okay, that's very good. Now let's start with our first pop quiz this morning. Who knows the jingle? Does anyone know our jingle? Safelite repairs, Safelite replace. Great! How many customers among us? That's fantastic. I hope your service was as wonderful as we intend. If not, please see me afterward. We'll make it right. It's always a dangerous question to start with. A lot of people don't realize, though, that Safelite is almost 70 years old already. And Safelite Group is comprised of 3 business units. So Safelite started in 1947. It was founded by a gentleman, you won't believe this, his name was Bud Glassman. So what choice did he have, right? We're made up of 3 business units. You see to the far right, Safelite Auto Glass. So that's the Safelite you all know, with our technicians repairing and replacing windshields, auto glass. We also have Safelite Solutions, which is a third-party administrator. So we process claims for insurance companies. For example, many of you might have Geico or Nationwide, Liberty Mutual. Oftentimes, we'll be the ones processing when you call your insurance company and you file for glass repair. That's actually us answering the phone on behalf of our clients. And then we have Service Auto Glass, which is our national provider of wholesale vehicle glass parts. Now, back in 2007, Safelite was acquired by a company called Belron. They have auto glass companies in, I think, 32 different countries across the world. And they saw great potential in Safelite. At that time, Safelite was fragmented, very blue-collar, mechanical, local glass shops just sporadically placed across the organization. They saw great potential to grow Safelite to what it is today, and that is the nation's largest provider of auto glass repair and replacement services. So here's a little bit about our backstory. When Belron purchased Safelite, they promoted Tom Feeney, who was the head of the sales function. They promoted Tom because they believed in his ability to grow the business, and how right they were. Tom also saw great potential. When he stepped into the role, he wanted Safelite to be more and to do more. He saw an opportunity to double the business and to double it again. But he also knew that in order to do that, we had to transform the business. He said we needed to become a business that invested in growth, and by doing that, we would focus on brand building so that people would know the jingle. Back then, not a lot of people did. And he said we need to be a people-focused organization. At that time, like a lot of other organizations, people were viewed more as the labor line, right? Workers, right? Labor. But he saw an opportunity to truly invest in people first. And if you get the people part right, everything else will fall into place. And so that was putting a major stake in the ground in 2008 during a really tough economy for businesses. Safelite was doing all right. We already had high customer satisfaction. We were solid, making a solid profit. But he wanted to build Safelite in a way that was sustainable, and that meant more than what we do, and focus more on why we do it. So we set off on a journey to achieve what Tom called greatness. We're good, but we want to be great. Well, the one thing that we recognized was that the very key to moving an organization from good to great starts with leadership. Now that statement is backed by a ton of research over the past decade, we know this, but it also just makes common sense. How many of you in your career have worked for a boss who was simply a jerk? And what did that do for your performance? Did you perform at your best under somebody who wasn't inspiring as a leader? Chances are no. And yet, how many of you have worked for someone who truly invested in you and inspired you to be at your best? So it makes sense, right? Leadership is the key to greatness for any type of organization. But we also recognize that leadership isn't about being great. It's about enabling others to be great. And that was a real mind shift for the folks at Safelite. And that's when I came aboard. So Tom hired me at first to focus on leadership development. But after hearing his vision and understanding what it was that we wanted to achieve, together we realized, no, this is more of a cultural transformation. We need a total infrastructure to achieve this. And so we did. But we really concentrated on this notion of leadership first because we realized that we had to define what being a great leader really meant. So you see out there today, the role of leadership has truly changed. So many of us over the years have been brought up in our careers to believe that leadership is about managing tasks, managing budgets, planning, scheduling, directing tasks. Well, today that's not enough, particularly for today's new workforce, which is made up for the most part of millennials, right? And we also now have Gen Z coming around the corner, right? Today, leadership is more about inspiring and empowering. Here's a quote that I love from Forbes magazine. The role of leadership has changed. It's no longer enough for the new millennium workforce to merely plan and direct action. Today, we must inspire and empower belief. So those key words, inspire and empower, mean a whole different thing to a lot of leaders who grew up being promoted because they were the subject matter experts. When you put someone in a leadership role, that's a totally different job. Your technical expertise doesn't matter so much anymore, and that's a real shift. Today it's about EQ. It's about creating intrinsic motivations so that people work through their own discretionary effort, so that they achieve and they drive results, not because they have to, not because they're being told to, but because they want to, right? So it's all about inspiring and engaging people. At work, we can use the carrot and the stick to get people to perform for a while. Eventually, they won't care, right? It's just following through, doing what you're told to be, doing what you're being told to do, which is very different than really working because you believe in what you do and you believe in why you're doing it and the difference you can make. That's the role of a leader, is to create that type of intrinsic motivation. And it's that kind of discretionary effort that makes a difference in how people perform. And it's generated simply by leadership. You can have the best company in the world, you can have posters of your mission statement all over the place and your values, but if you don't have great leaders in place who know how to engage people, you'll be left with mediocre performance. And that's what we mean when we talk about the difference between good and great. So it's also about creating the associate experience. We believe the customer experience is grounded in the associate experience. So we're very focused on building the type of environment that our associates recognize as the best place they'll ever work. That's a pretty bold statement. We also recognize, though, that the associate experience is a personal one. And creating the associate experience isn't an event. It's something that occurs from the point someone is hired all the way through retirement. We say hire to retire. That's the associate life cycle, if you will. And for us, there are 3 keys to creating the associate experience. First is to make it personal, and that means treating people as individual people. Giving them little things like personal notes to recognize their achievements or their milestones. And I'm talking handwritten notes. Genuine care for their well-being and for their families, recognition of their life events, really connecting with people on a personal level. Now that takes a lot of time, right? And it's tempting as you grow to become a large organization to use automation. How many of you received an automatically generated card that says congratulations on your 5-year anniversary? How does that make you feel? Not very recognized. One day, this was early in my career, I walked into Tom's office and I saw these stacks and stacks of paper on his desk. And he's writing. What are you doing, Tom? What is all this? How can I help you with this? He says, no, you can't help me with this. This is really important. I'm writing notes to people who are celebrating milestone anniversaries. I said, well, Tom, there are systems where we can do this for you. I said, or you can get a stamp or something. He said, absolutely not. This is one of my most important tasks. And then he picks up the phone and starts calling people on their milestone anniversary. He'll talk about their families. He'll offer to pay for their dinner to celebrate an anniversary. That goes such a long way with people because he's recognizing them as individuals. And he's taking a moment to personalize his note to them, which I thought was pretty fantastic. Actually, I felt a little guilty for offering him a stamp, but I've learned. The second is make it easy. And by this we mean, as a leader, it's important to make sure our people simply have the tools that they need to do their job. Right? They have the right technology. They have the right tools. They have the right information at their fingertips. So we've recently launched a program called TechVantage, where we developed an app where our associates can access information that means the most to them. Their schedule, their pay, their benefits. So often in large companies, we assume that we know what's important to associates, and we've learned over time the key is to ask. And that's another tip for leaders, is to ask, how can I make your job easier? Because that matters to people, right? And then you're enabling them to perform. And then the third key is making it real. And by this I mean, again, you can post and make proclamations. People come first in your organization or to you as a person, but your actions have to speak louder than those words. And yes, it does require investment. You have to be sure as a leader that you're compensating people appropriately, that you're recognizing people, that you're investing in things like their work environment, the tools that they have. It's critically important that you're backing up your statement with these investments, not only with money, but with your time, most importantly. And so we concentrate heavily on this associate experience, recognizing each and every individual. And that, again, takes time as a leader, and that's why we spent a lot of time talking with leaders about shifting their priorities. Your priorities as a leader isn't at the tasks that you have at hand. Many times the first thing a leader will do when you step into your office, and I'm talking about myself as well, is to jump on what? Email, right? Instead of walking around, connecting with people, asking how their day was, asking about their family, right? Spending time connecting with people on an emotional level. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's more than that. It's more than the connection. At Safelite, we're a people-powered, customer-driven organization. So we have this people-first mentality now. And so people are any Safelite leader's #1 responsibility. In fact, we require our leaders to pledge to lead our people according to the 4 cornerstones of what we call people-powered leadership. Now, people-powered leadership means we drive business performance by putting our people first and having an obsessive focus on engaging talented people who deliver extraordinary results. Now we put words to this because when we first put the stake in the ground and said we're going to be a people-first organization, many of our people said, woohoo! They thought it was a happy policy. Everybody's getting more pay, we're getting more vacation. Yeah, there's actually a strategy behind this. The 4 cornerstones talk about 1, having great leaders who create engagement among their associates, who in turn deliver extraordinary results. Focus. It's about considering people as a key part of your business strategy. So when you're shaping any kind of strategy in any type of organization or business, it's about starting with your people first, making sure that you have the right people in the right place at the right time, because that's what enables your results. Speaking of talent, having top talent has to be the #1 priority for any leader. Because again, that's what's going to enable your results. So your responsibility as a leader is not only to have a nose for identifying talent, but then to grow and retain that talent in your organization, because that is truly the ultimate competitive advantage. And then the 4th cornerstone is caring. Sincere concern for people's well-being creates loyalty, increases retention, and it's just the right thing to do. Who wouldn't want to work in an environment where you know you're cared about as a human being? And so those are the 4 cornerstones of being people-powered, and we introduced metrics around those cornerstones to hold our leaders accountable for leading in this way. But with all of that said, and that's a lot, leadership starts with trust, right? In order to influence people, in order to influence performance, in order to gain buy-in and get people to follow you, they first have to be able to trust you, truly trust you. If you don't trust someone, you're not going to feel safe to take risks. You're not going to feel safe to demonstrate that discretionary effort we talked about earlier, right? And so things like character and credibility are of the utmost importance for any leader, right, in order to be able to inspire and influence others. Here's a quote that I like from a book I just read. I went to Cincinnati and spoke, and I met an author of the book, The Trust Advantage. And there was a quote there that said, without character, there is no trust. Without trust, there are no followers. Without followers, leadership does not exist. Simple, but true, right? When it comes to building trust, words matter, and so we are really obsessive about our communication as an organization at SafeLight. Whether it's personal communication, individual communication, whether it's our public relations, whether it's internal corporate communication, employer branding, and even consumer branding. We put a lot of work and effort into every word. And there are a couple of principles around that. First, we make sure that every communication we have ties back to our overall purpose as an organization so that people understand their role in the big picture. So it's really important as a leader that you help people understand the why behind the work they're doing. And so we're pretty obsessive about that. We also make sure that all of our information, our corporate communication materials, visually link to our brand. It may seem silly, but it helps people understand they're a part of something bigger. When it comes to branding, there's a metaphor that I like to use. Building a brand is like making a movie. If you ever stop to think about how many people it takes to make a movie, it's not just the actors and the writers, right? You have costume designers, you have camera operators, you have sound engineers, positions we never heard of. Thousands of people working together to create one story. Each of those people play a really important role, although we might not hear of those people, except on the really fast credits that go by, right? But Everyone played a role. And that type of thinking, that type of realization that you are part of telling a story, creating an experience, is the feeling that we try to give our people, to understand that you, no matter what role you play, it's an important one to our story. What we communicate is a promise. And so every word we use truly, truly matters. But as much as words matter, actions matter even more. So we have another saying that I picked up along the way. It's from a culture-shaping organization called Sundelaney, and the concept is called Shadow of a Leader. And it's all about the basic principle that we all know: our actions speak louder than our words. But this is critical for leaders. You can't just get up and preach your principles and your values. You really have to walk the talk, because that has everything to do with whether or not people trust you, that they really trust you. So on this journey and talking about these principles as leaders, we've picked up our own lessons and our own techniques, right, to lead in this particular way. Tom himself has been very transparent and very public about his own transformation, his own leadership transformation. Like a lot of other people, he too was raised in the old school ways where it was about tell direct, using the stick versus the carrot. And so he has had to work on his own transformation, and through that, he came up with what we now call Feeney's leadership lessons, which are 4 A's and a V. Right? And here they are. The first is about being approachable. Being approachable to all people, not to titles. So Tom has a rule. He says, I will interrupt a meeting for 3 things. And that is a call from any associate, not just our VPs, but a call from any associate, a call from any customer or client, and a call from his wife, which is very wise. I've been in meetings where he has received calls from all 3. So he stands true to his word, right? I will do the same. I can be in an interview, I can be in an assessment center interviewing executive candidates, but if I have an associate who's calling for me personally, I'll stop everything and take the call. So it's a matter of prioritizing your people, but not just saying that people are important, but showing that they're important, right? Really following through on your promises. We're letting people know why you can't, and why it might take a little bit longer, right? Why you can't get to them. We're busy as leaders, it's true, but sometimes all it takes is stopping and explaining to a person you haven't gotten back to them, but you will, and then follow through. So this is all simple stuff. A lot of these are life lessons that we've learned, but it's really hard to apply when you're in the day-to-day chaos of your work. These are general principles, right? Treating others the way you want to be treated. We find that it's as simple as that at Safelite. It's about nailing the fundamentals and never losing sight of what really matters to people. Being authentic, and this is another key, is being genuine and being true. Telling the truth. Oftentimes, people just want to know where they stand, right? Even if the message is a tough one, it's also how you gain trust, to be candid and be truthful. It doesn't mean to be so direct that you leave the person laying on the floor with your feedback, but it does mean to speak the truth in a way that is constructive and honest and helpful. Mind your shadow, make sure that your actions match your words. And just be genuine. Be genuine in your efforts. Being accountable is another key. You got to hold yourself accountable. And when I say that, I mean investing in yourself as a work in progress. So leadership is an ongoing journey, right? There's always something that we as leaders can do more effectively. And so it's important to be transparent about that effort, because what you do is you give others permission. So at Safelite, we do a lot of 360 feedback reports or other types of surveys where we get feedback from our teams on how we're doing as leaders. And one of the most effective things that we do is then we share the results on screens as large as these to say, here's my 360 results. And as you can see, here are the areas where you think I'm doing really, really well, and here are the areas where I absolutely stink, and I need your help to get better, right? And so what does that transparency do? Number one, I'm showing that I'm holding myself accountable for being a great leader. I'm engaging them and helping me to do that. I'm asking for their feedback to lead in a way that is most effective for them. And by doing that, it gives other people permission to focus on their own development as well. And together, we work for continuous improvement. Aspirational. It's important for leaders to be able to have a vision and to be able to paint a compelling picture of that vision so that people understand, again, their role in the big picture, but that they believe in the destination and that they're working toward something, right? Oftentimes, this is a pitfall for leaders where they have or create an environment where people are working on their tasks, but they have no idea why or what it matters. Right? But when you paint a picture of a destination for people to reach, and they understand their role in getting to that destination, you're creating that discretionary effort, a purpose for people. So it is really important that you create, it doesn't have to be fancy, a 60-page deck. It could be just verbal, but help people understand what your vision is as a leader, what you're trying to accomplish, and their role in being a part of it. And the V, so it didn't fit with the A's, but it's very important, so we put it there anyway. Be visible. Oftentimes, we leaders can get caught behind our desks or stuck in that email. It's like I talked about earlier. Get out of the office, walk around, talk with people. And that was really a hard thing for us to work on. We had to keep each other honest. Did you go walk the floor, Natalie? Did you go walk around? Did you connect? How many people are you talking with? How many people are you connecting with? Or did you spend your day behind your desk? That's not a leader. That's a taskmaster, right? And so a lot of time management comes into play because we do have those emails. But we find that if you spend your time, I think Stephen Covey has an exercise around this. If you spend your time on those key priorities, those large rocks, right? You can fit the rest in. You can find a way to fit the rest in. It's all about prioritization and putting your people first as a leader. It's also about being present in the moment, making sure that you're actively listening. How many times do we find ourselves sitting and talking with someone, but you got all these thoughts going in your head, right? So practicing the simple art of active listening, engaging someone in a conversation and asking them why, and asking for their input. Simple stuff, like I said, but again, absolute key. And then also balancing the team you lead with the team you're on. So oftentimes as leaders, we are part of an executive team, a leadership team, and we're always meeting with those teams and we have follow-up items for that group. It's very important to be a participating peer. But it's also important that you're balancing time with the team you lead, that you're taking time to share information that they need to know to do their jobs effectively, that you're making sure they have the resources they need to do their jobs effectively, and that you're spending time, most importantly, to connect with them on an individual level. So that balance also goes back to prioritization and how you set your priorities as a leader. So those are the 4 A's and a V that we find quite applicable in our business as individuals and as an organization. We've also learned, again, that leadership development is an ongoing journey. No matter if you're a newly promoted leader or if you've got years of experience behind you, there is always room to strengthen our skills and adjust our styles as leaders. It's an ongoing journey, and plus we're humans, so we'll never be perfect. But we can be more effective. We use a program, one of the programs we use at Safelight is from the Hay Group. Has anyone heard of the Hay Group International? Okay. They have a program you might be familiar with then called Stars and Climate. And the concept is that as a leader, you create the culture for your people, right? And to create a healthy, high-performing culture, you need to use a set of leadership styles. They've identified through their extensive research 6 styles you should use to create a healthy, high-performing climate. We do surveys, so as a leader, I'll give out a survey to my team and ask them to complete it, and they rate how I'm demonstrating those 6 styles, and as a result, what type of climate I'm creating. We receive these reports as individuals, but part of my role is I can receive these results from all of the leaders across our business, and I can see what kind of leadership we're using across the organization. When I first did this, when I looked at our collective report, there's actually one before, but I thought I'd spare you. In 2012, you can see the pie chart there. The red and the pinkish indicate a very directive, a tell-direct approach that creates an environment of compliance. Right? The green indicates more of coaching, visionary, democratic leadership style, which creates a healthy, high-performing climate. So when we first looked at this collectively, we thought, oh boy, we have a lot of leadership development work we have to do, but it also helped to inform our leadership development strategy. We knew that we had to teach leaders to be more visionary, to be more democratic, more participative in their leadership styles. So, and this consists of about 300 leaders, these pie charts. 2014, you can see we're moving the needle, the green is growing. 2016, you can see we're primarily in the green. We still have some work to do, but we put a great deal of time and effort in leadership development, developing our current leaders, and hiring the right leaders who already have the skills. One thing that we decided to do when we started this transformation was we decided that we didn't want to bring in a whole new leadership team. We had a great amount of commitment and loyalty to our business. We wanted to teach before we turned our leaders. And so we did. We built all sorts of custom leadership development programs to help them develop the skills that we were talking about, the skills that were important to our organization. We sent a message that said, you need to get on board. This is leadership now at Safelite, but we're going to teach, and then we're going to hold you accountable. I'm proud to say that this needle is moving because over 2/3 of our leaders have embraced their own leadership transformation. It is one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen, to see a leader who's been in place with the business for 25 years totally change his leadership style. It can be done, and it is being done. So as a result of that, today we're a different company. You can feel it. Remember the kind of disjointed, blue-collar, 80s style organization that I described earlier? Today we have a new attitude, a palatable energy in our business, a sense of innovation and exploration, total dedication to customer delight, better collaboration, people are working together, increased brand preference as a result. So with this positive energy comes better service to our customers and better business results overall. In fact, you can see we have measurable results. So since 2008, our customers served have grown about 79%. Now that's just since 2008, which wasn't that long ago. You can see our sales have increased by 93%. EBITDA's up by 151%. So this is a great, phenomenal results. In 2008, when I started, we had 6,000 employees. We now have 14,000 employees. Today, instead of me singing the jingle to potential candidates to join our organization, we've got Al Roker singing our jingle on the Today Show. It's pretty phenomenal. But that's not what we're about. We view our financial results as an outcome. For us, it's really not about the glass, and it's not even about the P&L. For us, it's about a greater purpose. Going back to Tom's vision back in 2008 to be more and to achieve more, we articulated our purpose as an organization, and that is to make a difference and bring unexpected happiness to people's everyday lives. This is what we strive to achieve as an organization, and this is what we strive to achieve as leaders. Right? To truly make a difference. Now, that might sound a little lofty for an auto glass company. We don't speak of the glass here. That's because the glass is what we do, but it's not why we do it. It's not why we as individuals get up in the morning. We truly do want to make a difference. There's an old saying, right? People don't remember what you do or even what you say, but they'll always remember the way you make them feel. Well, that's what we set out to do. We know that we replace auto glass. When people contact us, they are not happy. They have a problem, right? So we set out to make a difference and to treat them in a way that leaves them feeling happy. In our small way, that's about making the world a better place. We believe that anyone can be a leader. It's not about titles. Whether you're leading yourself, whether you're leading teams, or whether you're leading a cause. But to be a leader that leads with purpose, and therefore an effective leader, and a leader who will accomplish more than the daily tasks, it starts with one question. One question that I'll leave with you, and that is, what will be your personal leadership legacy? What is your purpose, right? In your role, in your task at hand, in the meeting you're having, and even in your life? And then to steward every effort you have to making it so. And that is our best advice. So, in a nutshell, that's leadership at Safelite. I hope that this was helpful in some small way as you set out on your leadership journey. Let's see the time. Are there any questions about our leadership? Yep.
You mentioned in the slide, just a couple of slides back, about the leadership development program and how you continuous improvement. You mentioned certain skill sets that you focus on. Could you just out of curiosity, mention 2 or 3 skill sets you focused on for certain people, and just think of the energy.
Absolutely.
Can you repeat the question so I can get on?
Yes. So the question was, if I get it right, the question was, could I describe some of the leadership skill sets that we look for? That we look for? Yes. So first and foremost, we look for people leadership skills. I'll describe when we do that. We have assessment centers for every leader we hire at the manager level and above, which is over 1,000 positions in our organization right now. The assessment centers are quite time-taking because they involve several role-play activities and a work sample presentation. Now, in the role-play activities, we are looking to draw out competencies that reflect people leadership. So how someone coaches people, how someone inspires people, how someone collaborates with people. These role plays are pretty intense, so the whole thing takes a full day for our candidates to come in. And if you have a really good role player, you really see true behaviors come out, because let's face it, a lot of people are professional interviewers, right? They have the gift of gab, right? The resumes look great, but you put them in a role play with someone who can really draw out emotion, and sometimes you see behaviors that indicate a very direct approach. We are maniacal about protecting our culture and making sure that the leaders we hire are indeed people leaders. We also do things like our annual people opinion survey. And what that does is it measures our associate engagement. And we use it as a metric. So after the survey, we might see that a leader has a low level of engagement. Now, we don't take the number at face value. We understand there might be reasons why. But we talk with people and we understand what style of leadership is that person using and how can that person improve, and then we work with them to develop their skills. So the key there is to have the ability to engage people, create a sense of engagement in their team. And then we use programs like the Hay Group. Can that leader flex their leadership styles? Know when to be visionary versus directive. Know when to set the pace versus being democratic. You have to be able to flex those leadership styles depending on the situation and the makeup of your team. And we look for leaders who have character above all. We can teach the hard skills. We can teach the technical skills. Does it help in terms of credibility? Absolutely. So we look for the technical skills if we're hiring a CFO or a finance VP, but most importantly, we spend time on the people skills, character, credibility, and integrity. Does that help? Good.
How far down in the organization do you leadership training? Do you expose frontline employees?
Yes, our frontline leaders are very focused right now. So what we learned was we were offering maybe one class a year to frontline leaders, and that simply isn't enough. We had to start from the top down. And it took us a few years to do that and to make that turn. But right now we are very focused on a full curriculum for our frontline because, to your point, that's where it happens, right? The frontline leaders are the ones who are coaching and influencing your customer-facing associates, right? Your most important, we call our technicians and our customer service representatives the heroes of our business. So we've got to be sure that those frontline leaders know how to lead. That's also the trickiest spot because that's the layer of leadership that they've been promoted because they've been the best technician. Well, the best technician does not make a great leader. So yes, we're investing there heavily, but only in recent years. It's been a journey. Yes?
Is Safe Light's leadership only in Columbus, or are you more of a national presence?
Yes, the question is Safe Light leadership only local or national presence? National. So we're shaped very much like a retail chain. So we're in all states, and we have about 10 regions. Over those regions, we have regional vice presidents. And then under each regional vice president, we have district managers. So they might have, say, 10 district managers. And then reporting to those districts are store managers. So they might have 10 stores. So that makes it challenging when you are working to develop leaders, right, through classes or e-learning or coaching. It's a lot easier when you have everyone contained in one place. So the way we get to that is part of my team is made up of what we call field people business partners. So in each region, I have someone there who serves as a people business partner to that regional vice president and their district managers and so on. And so we often... Pardon?
Is the executive team in Columbus?
The executive team is here in Columbus, yes. Often on the road, but we live here in Columbus. And that's another way. We try to get out frequently to meet our people in the field. They're the ones who are making it happen. So that being visible and being approachable requires us to travel and connect with the people who are making it happen. We say that Tom could never do that show, Undercover Boss, because they know him too well. Plus he's rather tall with the white hair, it would never work. And that's what we as an executive team aspire to be, too well known to be hidden. Yes?
Natalie, as a career development and outplacement consultant, I'd be interested for you to describe and let me know if we measure the applicant experience so that then you can get and retain that talent.
Yes, the question was whether or not we measure the candidate, the applicant experience. Absolutely we do, and again, this is more in recent years. So over the years, we also had to build, I'll try and make this quick, we had to build an HR function because back in 2008, there was none. We had a few people who reported up into legal, so we had to that was the infrastructure I spoke about. That also included bringing in HR technology so that we could get data from associates from across the country, right? That data enabled us to see that some of our turnover was occurring in that first year. And we learned by talking with people that we weren't doing a very good job of, number one, communicating the job clearly. So for example, our technician job is a really tough role. You're out there in the elements. And we weren't effectively describing the role so that when people got into the job, they were surprised. We also weren't making the application process very easy. I learned that it was taking our applicants 20 pages, right, to fill out an application online. One night at dinner, my son, who was 18 at the time, we have a rule, no cell phones at dinner. He said, "Just a minute, Mom," and then he put his phone down. I said, "Who was that, a friend?" He said, "No, I applied for a job." So that led us to looking for a new HR platform so that we could be more effective in the process of applying, but also through conversations and interviewing, making the candidate a great experience so that whether or not someone got the job, they feel great about it. In fact, we spend a lot of time, those assessment centers I mentioned, that requires a lot of time from a candidate. So we make sure that we circle back and thank people and give them feedback from that assessment center. On the front line, we're trying to do a much better job of following up with people and making sure that we're actually thanking them for selecting Safelite as an employer of choice. Yes, a lot of time on the candidate experience. Did that answer your question?
It does. Can we clone you?
I don't know if that would be wise, but thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
What do you see as the next great challenge?
The next great challenge has been and is really focusing on the associate experience that I described because we're growing rapidly. In this growth rate, it is really easy to get caught up in the growth itself and the tasks at hand and losing people. It's easier to be personal when you're a small company. But one of the things that has made Safelite great is that family feel, that family culture, and that's really hard now since we have a much larger population. And so to your point, we've got to make sure that we're getting to the frontline leaders because that's not something that can happen from one small executive team. And it's really important that we walk the talk. So that is our challenge now. How do we personalize? Like I said, it's really tempting to automate these things, the cards and all of that. So we're building tools. I'll give you an example. We just rolled out a recognition program that's hybrid. So we use the systems to let us know who's celebrating their milestone, and we've created an online catalog. But then we give that to the leader online, and the leader online can personalize it with their own stories about the associate and also invite friends of the associate to write comments. So while we are using technology to be efficient, we're still leaving room to personalize. So that's the challenge, is to find that balance. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you see the potential changes in the automotive industry with Uber and the self-driving cars and all that being relevant to your business?
Oh, absolutely. We work very hard to stay in front of all of the changes in the auto industry. And it does affect us dramatically because you know that now inside of windshields there's a lot of technology, and so we have to recalibrate that technology. And so we work with the auto manufacturers to understand how that works so that we can reset or recalibrate that for our customers. We have to watch the industry very closely because of those things. Also, we study technology, so one of our learning exercises involved us visiting other organizations. So we don't compare ourselves to other auto glass companies. We look at companies who are renowned for great cultures and great customer service. So we visited companies like Google, LinkedIn, Southwest Airlines, Starbucks, Ritz-Carlton to understand how they do that, how they meet their balance. We also learned a lot about technology. So Uber, we're actually using a program that's a lot like Uber so that our customers can see, they not only get the text from the technician that they're on their way, but they can now see them, just like the little Uber map, right? Because a lot of our customers aren't standing there waiting. They want to know when we're on their way so they can run out to the parking lot if they choose to meet the technician. So indeed, we learn a lot from our ever-changing world, and we benchmark companies who are renowned as the best. We're on an ever-learning journey, and it's a lot of fun.
Any other questions? Please help me thank Natalie